Growing up, I was obsessed with robots. There wasn't even anything deep about it. I just thought they were freaking cool. Giant robots, tiny robots, toy robots, robots on TV and in movies, and of course, robots in games. So much of the media I consumed as a kid teased this idea that someday in the near future, we might be piloting mech suits in some far-flung war, or returning home to dinner cooked by our in-home butler. And of course, there were alternative views of the future too, ones where machines rebelled against their human creators. They woke up and chose violence. But despite decades of dreaming about it, well, none of that has come true. Even with recent developments in artificial intelligence, it feels like our priorities are wildly out of whack, and I'm not alone in thinking that. I still do my own laundry, I cook my own dinner. I can't say I'm much closer to being able to pilot my own vigilante mech suit. So where are they? Well, they're here, just not where we expected to find them. Social robots are already in schools and in hospitals, and soon they'll be in our homes. And what they're becoming is far more complex and fascinating than anything science fiction imagined. With them come real questions that we should start asking ourselves today. And one game in particular stands out in its exploration of the moral, ethical, and practical issues underlying the future of social robotics. So let's take a spoiler-free look at how our world and the world of Detroit Become Human are beginning to converge, and what that means for the future of humanity. I'm Max Neal, and this is Voxel.
Don't you call me a mindless philosopher, you overweight glob of grease.
Robotics is a big field. It encompasses everything from 60-foot Gundams to articulating arms that can perform surgery inside of living human beings, and everything in between. But in this video, we're specifically focusing on social robotics. And so I turned to science writer and researcher Eve Herold, author of this book, Robots and the People Who Love Them, to lay down a timeline for when we should start to see social robots in our daily lives.
Well, I think it's imminent. I really do. And I point to Japan, for example, where people have been on the cutting edge of adopting robots. They have them working in nursing homes and hospitals and various businesses. They do a lot of healthcare caregiving, which makes them very, very valuable to a country like Japan, which has an aging population and a shortfall of caregivers. I mean, there's so many robots under development. Even Tesla's got a new robot under development. Big companies are getting into it. A lot of investment is being put into it. And the science is proceeding by leaps and bounds.
And if that surprises or excites you, then you are going to love today's sponsor. You, our viewers. Algorithms and artificial intelligence are playing a greater role than ever in determining what kind of content you see here on YouTube. So if you want more conversations like this one that blend art, culture, and games, and the world around us, hit the subscribe button. I want to keep Voxel independent and non-reliant on sponsorships, and so consider supporting the channel over on Patreon at patreon.com/VoxelShow. There you'll find our full interview with Eve, along with behind-the-scenes videos and a sneak peek at the other projects that we've got in the works. Anyway, back to it. Social robotics is a field largely attributed to the work of Cynthia Brazil and her team at MIT. They realized that there was an element missing from the world of robotics as we knew it.
Robotics had really been about interacting with things, not with people. Certainly not in a social way that would be natural for us and would really help have people accept robots into our daily lives. For me, that was the white space. That's what robots could not do yet. And so that year, I started to build this robot Kismet, the world's first social robot.
Let's all agree, Kismet is a nightmare creature, and there's a certain irony in a group of MIT researchers, the best and brightest in their field, creating something that might visit you in 5 Nights at Freddy's. But Kismet was an early example of what might be possible with years of research and development. They were a glimpse into a future that's being built today.
The technology is just, improving by leaps and bounds. I mean, I just read an article a few days ago about a prosthetic robotic arm that has like this polymer skin that's electronic and can actually feel things. It's not in its mind, it's not here feeling things, but in the actual apparatus itself, it's responding to touch, and it's able to do, and this would be a big development that would help us have household robots sooner, because it can pick up a glass of water without crushing it, which a robot that doesn't have enough sensory input could easily do something like that. It could try to lift a sick person from a bed and, I don't know, break a rib or something, because it can't sense to that level, not in that level of sophistication. So I think the technology is really bringing things forward.
Detroit Become Human takes place in that future. It's the year 2038, and fully autonomous androids live among us, and they play a role in our everyday lives. They're our shop clerks and our in-home nannies. They look like us. Their robotic frames are covered in a synthetic flesh designed to look human. Human at least enough to cross one of robotics' biggest challenges, the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley is a term you might be familiar with. It describes a point in our attempt to design representations of ourselves where we pass from a cartoonish abstraction of a human into something that looks and acts almost real, where our belief in a conversation or an experience we're sharing with someone or something rests on a knife's edge between believability and horror. We're stuck with something that our minds tell us might be human, but looks instead like this. Human enough, with human features that we can recognize and identify, but somehow look or move in a way that's deeply unsettling. You've probably experienced the Uncanny Valley in movies and games, or if you've ever visited a Madame Tussauds, places where the familiar is sometimes made unfamiliar. The Uncanny Valley takes us by surprise, and whether it's due to a unique artistic choice or thanks to a software glitch, it often leaves us feeling uncomfortable and reminds us that what we're looking at isn't human at all. This is Ameca, designed by Engineered Arts. Ameca is considered to be among robotics' most advanced examples of human expression through speech. Ameca uses machine learning to mimic human facial movements and expressions while speaking, and this is Emo, a robot created by Columbia Engineering, designed not only to replicate human expressions, but also to anticipate human expressions before they happen. I don't think I can overstate how incredible these machines are. They're proof of how robotics designers are continuing to consider the importance of humanoid robots, not merely as inanimate objects that clean our homes, but in playing a role in our social lives. But Ameca and Emo are far from perfect. Their expressions are at best a simulacrum of human emotion, and at worst, well, part of the issue is in us, actually. Humans are incredibly, unconsciously perceptive. In social settings, we pick up on even the slightest micro-movements in one another's faces. We're keen to build normative understandings of human emotions, of pain, of happiness, of sadness, because these have long been considered keys to our continued success as social creatures. This preference toward normative behavior may even be one of the reasons why humanity's faced so much difficulty in accepting the abnormal among us. And I use this word very carefully and with the biggest of air quotes, because what many perceive as abnormal behavior really is normal. Our differences are what make each of us unique and beautiful and human. But if we live with robots around us, then it's important that their very existence doesn't leave us in fear of being murdered in our sleep. And so in accepting them, we might first need to address some of these deeply rooted human prejudices. But even if we solve the issue of the uncanny valley, if we can create convincing human-like expressions that don't make us want to run screaming, there's another massive challenge standing in the way of social robots: mobility. Social robots aren't just going to sit at a desk making facial expressions at us. We tried this. It was weird.
Hey, could you get the door?
Yes. Sure. If they're going to be integrated into our daily lives, social robots need to navigate the spaces that we've built, climbing stairs, opening doors, carrying objects, moving through crowds. And achieving that kind of fluid, adaptable movement, that's proven to be incredibly difficult. I'd actually experienced firsthand years ago how far we had to go. It's 2005, and I'm in the city of Toyota, Japan. Yes, that Toyota. The city was formerly known as Kuromo, and renamed after the Toyota Motor Corporation in 1959, after the company had established itself as a major economic powerhouse in the region, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Well, I was there during the 2005 World Expo to tour the Toyota Kaikan Museum. It's where Toyota shows off its latest technological achievements and prototypes and innovations. It's full of displays of half-cut open cars and a model vehicle assembly line with its own form of robots. But what captured my attention and my imagination was what greeted us in the lobby. Standing just inside the museum doors is the TPR version 1, the first bipedal robot capable of playing the trumpet. It stands in the lobby of the Toyota Kaikon Museum and represents Toyota's entry into world-changing robotics. The team at Toyota also imagined this mobility prototype that you can't convince me was not designed by Japanese Dr. Eggman.
You haven't seen the power this vessel really has!
Meeting the TPR version 1 was the first time I came face to face with a humanoid robot. And while it stood and tooted its trumpet, I was filled with the sense that we were living in the future. How soon would it be until we got our own TPR ones, accompanying us to the grocery store, looking after our human children, or playing in an all-robot, all-trumpet orchestra? The TPR version 1 could delight. The mundanity of our lives could instead be carried out by our own personal robotic butlers. No, friends. How much does it cost? I asked naively. Our tour guide politely told me that the TPR version 1 wasn't for sale, but maybe it would be, sometime in the future. In the year 2038, personal social robots are for sale in stores around the world, and they're able to move in much the same way that humans can. Humanoid robots or androids are bipedal, and they walk and gesture the way that we do, and this has enabled them to replace many of the mundane jobs in society. And to some of us, they aren't just tools, they're our friends. Now, Toyota wasn't the only player in the robot game back in 2005. They weren't even the first to it. Honda had already unveiled their bipedal robot Asimo years earlier, and since then, Asimo's conducted symphonies, learned to pick up chicks, it even played soccer with Barack Obama. All of this was really incredible to see, but even back then, you couldn't help but notice Asimo's limited, jilted, and overly precise movements, less of a robotic friend and more of a device designed to perform a single task. That's not too surprising when you consider Toyota and Honda's use of robotics on their assembly lines. They're machines designed to do the same thing over and over again. Asimo and the TPR fell short of these fantastic visions of the future brought to us by science fiction. They were a reminder that progress takes time and a lot of money, and a thermos-opening robot wasn't going to replace humans in the workforce anytime soon. But things are changing. The team at Boston Dynamics is specialized in advancing robotics in the area of mobility. Their robot Atlas is maybe the most famous modern bipedal robot in its ability to walk, jump, roll, carry heavy objects, navigate obstacle courses, even breakdance. Watching the development of these machines is freaking fascinating. But here's the thing. While Boston Dynamics is mastering robotic mobility, Atlas can't hold a convincing human conversation. Meanwhile, Engineered Arts has created Amika with incredible, lifelike facial expressions, but Amika can't walk across a room. And both of these robots have dabbled in the use of artificial intelligence and language learning models, but neither is intelligent. Social robotics and our vision of the future exists at the intersection of these various disciplines that still have yet to be brought together.
Different people are doing different things in labs around the world, mostly in America, Japan, China, and Europe. And they're working on different problems. And they're making incredible strides with different problems that need to be solved to ever bring a robot into the household. And sooner or later, somebody, and I think sooner rather than later, because this is market driven, so somebody is going to pull all that together. I'm not aware of a robot right now that incorporates all of the technology, all of the capability, but rest assured there are people working on this.
The missing puzzle piece here is someone willing to put in the effort, and let's be honest, the money, to consolidate these technologies into one effort, to create a single, perfect machine. Although, is it really perfection that we're after? We often think of robots as perfect beings, able to effortlessly perform tasks that would require our total attention and concentration. In fact, this perceived perfection and dedication to the task that they've been programmed is sort of what makes robots valuable to us. You'd be pretty pissed if your Roomba decided it wanted to pick up painting or throw a rager while you were out. But mistakes, imperfections, even personal preferences might become a necessity for social robots to be accepted in everyday society. No one likes a know-it-all, and it turns out the same even applies to robots. There was a study in human-robot interaction where participants in the study group were tasked with working on a project with a social robot that had been programmed to make small mistakes, while participants in the control group were assigned a robot that made no mistakes at all. The study's findings showed that participants working with the clumsy robot found it to be more likable and pleasant to work with when compared to the flawless one. Something I find so fascinating about Atlas is not only that it moves in such an impressive way, but that it has a way of moving that makes it appear at times almost human. There's a subtlety in Atlas's movements, one not seen in the Asimo or the TPR, that give it a quality of looking almost alive, conscious, even imperfect. Imperfections endear us to one another. They can create core memories of us, of friends and family, and they're an important element of our functioning as a society because they allow each of us a space to fit into the social fabric. But think about the role of social robots in the future. Futurists envision a world where robots teach and entertain our children. They might look after patients in hospitals or become a potential sexual or romantic partner. 3 areas where, let's be honest, mechanical imperfection sounds like an absolute nightmare. But social imperfection, such as a unique vocal imperfection or an unusual tic or eccentric preferences, might go far in adapting them to human habitation. But still, there's a massive issue at play behind social robotics that threatens its entire premise. Like Eve mentioned, we're already seeing social robots integrate themselves into our daily lives. Imagine a robotic teacher's assistant able to pass out and grade papers, or present complex concepts and answer simple questions when the teacher's busy, or a medical assistant capable of taking a patient's blood pressure and summarizing their symptoms, or assisting during surgery. If you're skeptical, some of these robots already exist in some form today. You just can't speak to them yet. You might be thinking that robots stepping into classrooms and hospitals is a gigantic risk, and I would tend to agree with you. And that highlights perhaps the most important human element required if we're going to accept social robots in the future, and that's trust. Most of the machines in your life don't really require trust today. You don't need to trust your laundry machine. You don't need to trust your coffee maker. These are machines that perform a single task for you. But here's where things get really complicated. Social robots aren't just entering our homes, they're entering our relationships. Think about it. Every meaningful relationship you have with your family and your friends, even that person you chat with online, is built on trust. We trust that they're being honest with us, that they care about our well-being, that they're, well, real. But what happens when you can't tell the difference? Imagine a heart-to-heart conversation with someone online, sharing your deepest fears and anxieties, only to discover later that you've been talking to a chatbot. Or picture your elderly parent who lights up when their robot companion asks about their day, but barely calls you anymore. Are these authentic relationships, or are we just talking to very sophisticated algorithms designed to keep us engaged? Right now, that's exactly what's happening. When you interact with a social robot today, you're not really building a relationship with it. You're having a conversation with a team of programmers who designed its responses. Every "how are you feeling?" or "tell me more about that" is coming from a corporate strategy meeting, not from genuine care or curiosity. But what happens when that changes? What happens when social robots develop true consciousness, when they're no longer sophisticated products, but beings, capable of genuine attachments and able to make their own decisions, and yes, even breaking our trust? Trust is something that's built either through daily interactions with one another, like in the case between coworkers, or through reputable institutions responsible for vetting and certifying people with high-impact jobs, like doctors and teachers. Trust in a robot, something whose body and artificial mind are manufactured, requires trust in the company that built it. And that's hard enough already, when even AI developers today don't fully understand how our current technologies actually work.
There's something about the alien nature of the robot mind. It's inscrutable. Even the engineers who create the algorithms don't understand how these robots are arriving at various decisions. And we know from AI, and with chatbots, that sometimes they make abysmal errors. We're full of mixed emotions when it comes to robots. 1 minute we're charmed and beguiled and we believe anything they say because they're a machine and they allegedly can't be wrong. And then the next minute we're thinking, my God, this thing here, it's thinking of killing me,
What do you think? Could you ever trust a being whose entire existence is owed to a corporation? Could you maintain trust in something whose entire personality could change after a single software update? I honestly want to know what you think. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. The solution to this question of trust might be in social robotics' single greatest challenge, and that's of true artificial intelligence. And to be clear, we're not talking about chatbots or ChatGPT or even any of the medical or diagnostic robots that exist today. We're talking about real artificial intelligence, or strong AI, as it's been termed. The path to true artificial intelligence is still heavily debated, but two milestones are intertwined in the discussion of what intelligence actually is. The first is artificial general intelligence, or AGI. That's the ability of a machine to apply its intelligence to any subject. It's what allows us to learn from experiences and apply what we've learned to future scenarios. We've already developed examples of narrow artificial intelligence, such as in self-driving vehicles, where machines are able to make informed decisions based on the learnings of hundreds of thousands of simulations and parameters that define a narrow task like driving a car. Artificial general intelligence, though, is a step beyond that. A self-driving car decides not to turn into a parking lot because a nearby pedestrian is crossing. Hitting that pedestrian isn't just a parameter to be avoided, it would likely injure them. The car would then need to go to court and face sentencing. It might lose its license and need to be driven to work by another self-driving car to get to its new job as a grocery store cashier to make ends meet for its self-driving family. It's this broad application of intelligence, however ridiculous, to different areas of life and an understanding of cause, effect, and reason that defines the boundaries of AGI. And we don't know how to teach that to a machine yet. And so the second milestone, or maybe it's the first one, is the one that makes this whole example sound so ridiculous. And that is the issue of artificial consciousness. All of us exhibit not only some level of intelligence, but also a recognition that we exist, like in a world with a life that's finite. Consciousness is a combination of everything we've experienced, our knowledge, our memories, our senses, and it's what makes us act in the best interest of our own futures. The robots of 2025 don't exhibit anything near consciousness, but in 2038, robot consciousness is clearly expressed. The androids in Detroit Become Human act in their own self-interest, presumably not only in the preservation of their physical bodies and their pre-programmed duties, but in an effort to prosper as individuals and as a species. And it's that perceived awareness of their own mortality and the little individualities that they indulge themselves in that make us, the player, care about and connect to characters like Kara and Marcus and the others. In a study released in 2018, researchers instructed participants to interact with a small robot on a desk for about 5 minutes, and then the participants were given the option to switch the robot off. Now, in half of the participants, the robot said nothing when faced with the idea of being shut down. But in the other half, the robot begged for its life and pleaded not to be shut down. In the cases where the robot objected, participants took significantly longer to shut the robot down. Now, researchers found that different personality types and biases towards robots may have played a pretty large effect in the reaction of the participants towards the robot. But there's undoubtedly something powerful in our humanization of robots and even characters on a screen that connects us to them. If you've ever played a game that puts the lives of its characters at your fingertips, you've probably experienced the moral dilemma of choosing between life and death. Games are particularly great at forcing us to face these decisions because the outcomes are ultimately our choice. But why do we make the decisions we make in games so easily? Perhaps it's their impermanence or their lack of intelligence or consciousness that makes it easy for us to decide the fate of these synthetic creatures. But unlike video game characters, social robots someday in the future will be here to stay. They'll be walking among us in our hospitals, our schools, even our homes. It's a future that's coming sooner than we realize, and it brings with it some important questions we should be thinking about today. What role should robots play in our daily lives? How important is it that they look or talk or think like us? What do we do when our coffee maker decides it doesn't want to make us coffee? Are intelligence and consciousness enough to grant machines rights equal to those of human beings? Who should be responsible for a consciousness and a thinking machine? And what limits should we put, if any, on the robots of the future? Let's start thinking about these questions today, because figuring them all out ahead of time might just be the difference between a future that looks like this and one that looks like this.